I don't know if this is still true. At one point, I had the second longest field goal in Cornell history.
And you've tried to hustle me, I feel like, because you keep wanting to do these crossbar challenges.
I could absolutely beat you in the crossbar challenge.
Well, that's never been proven.
I remember, I grew up wrestling, and
before you asked him, I'll do the field goal kicking contest. I'm not wrestling you. We're not like moving this table out of here, and I'm not going to do that. Just for
that's been a long time ago.
What's up, Union fans? Welcome back to the DOOP presented by Subaru. I'm Sage Hurley. Over there in the corner, we have Mark Evans.
What's up, Sage?
And today we have a very special guest, Philadelphia Union Club President Tim McDermott. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm fantastic. Mark the mailman.
Thanks for coming, Prez.
Appreciate it. Are you nervous?
Am I nervous?
Yes. You asked me if I was nervous, but now I'm asking you if you're nervous.
No. It's okay. A different dynamic already, I can tell.
Correct.
It's not a 19, 20-year-old, 22-year-old kid. So it's different, but it's good. We got to spread our wings a little bit, right, Sage?
Exactly.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me in here. Like I said, I've always wondered what goes on in this room. It's a very clandestine room, so appreciate you guys having me.
Well, we're excited to have you here because we have a lot to talk about. What an exciting time it is to be a part of the Philadelphia Union. The team has had one of their best starts to a season in club history. There's been countless milestones on the pitch for the club and for individuals. And on the business side, there's some pretty significant milestones on the horizon. What have the past several months been like as a leader of this organization?
Wow, it's been almost, 10 years now. Almost 10 years, 10 seasons that I've been here. And to think about kind of what it was like when I got here, and the growth that we've had, both on the field, off the field, is really special. I think we've created something in terms of, a really sustained way of winning. Obviously last year we had a little bit of a setback, but I think if you look at the last 5, 6, 7 years and what we've done and the way that we've done it, and it's pretty unique. A team that can has the most points, obviously a lot of wins, etc. And just the way that we play, it's a very differentiated way of playing, and a little bit of a competitive advantage for how we do it. I think it bodes well for the future. I think we put a lot in terms of like the type of player that we go after, our use of data to find those players, and just a really strategic, smart way to kind of put players onto the field, whether that be through acquisition of players, inside the league, people come from outside the league, or whether that be from our youth development. So it's been really, really exciting, and the future is just really bright.
Like you said, the future is really bright, and this is a special time in Chester. But before we look ahead, let's take a little bit of a look back on this podcast. When we have players on, coaches on, we try to get to know who they are when they're not in their role.
All right.
So today, I want to know, who is Tim McDermott? How did you find yourself as a leader of Philadelphia's Major League Soccer team, the Philadelphia Union?
So I've spent 30 years now in professional sports, NFL, NHL, NBA, and now MLS. I graduated when I was graduating, I should say. I went to Cornell University, played football there, and my dad, really urged me to reach out to, at the time, the general manager for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's a Cornell grad, played football as well, and so again, this is 30 years ago. So I wrote him a letter. I know you guys don't know what that means, but
people watching the pod definitely don't know what that means.
Yes, correct. So I wrote a letter, and one thing led to the next. But the quid pro quo is I had to take an internship. So I'm graduating from Cornell. I had really strong job offers in corporate America, where I could take a risk on taking an internship with the Jaguars. They were just starting as a franchise. It was their inaugural season. And so I did that, and started in football operations, which is the side of the house that really puts together the salary cap and getting the team kind of onto the field. And 6 months later, was offered a full-time job on that side. But at the same time, I had found my way over to the sponsorship side of the house, the business side of the house, and that really resonated with me as well. And so I ended up taking a full-time offer on there, spent on that side of the house, spent 3-4 years there, then to San Diego Chargers, got out of the business completely, went to business school for 2 years, went to Harvard Business School, because I really felt like I needed to understand, to really lead a company, how all of the different disciplines kind of intersect with one another when you're running a business. So that was a fantastic opportunity. And I came out of business school and decided to, instead of going right back into sports, I spent a few years at Comcast, which at the time was the third largest cable operator. And obviously now we know how big they are these days. So, and then I got the itch to go back into sports. So like I said, I was in a few different NFL teams and NHL teams and NBA teams, and now here. So it's been a great run, and now I have a chance to be a president of a team and lead a team, and the differences of being in a leadership president type role than what I've been before, and it's special. It comes with a degree of responsibility, and I realize everything that happens, particularly anything that's not, if it doesn't go right, ultimately it's on me, and I have to have that sense of responsibility for that. So if we don't have a great customer experience, or if we don't sell enough tickets, or whatever it may be, it's not anybody else's fault than my own. And making sure I understand that, and that sense of responsibility has been it's been special to go through it.
So you've brought a wealth of experience into this role, but you've also brought a passion for what you're working on and for this club. And in order to work in sports, you do have to have that passion for the game, whichever game you're involved in. And for a lot of us sports lovers, that starts at a very young age. I know you've been in and around sports probably for as long as you can remember. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I grew up in the Philadelphia market here. I went to North Penn High School. And as my dad was an aspiring college football coach, and coached locally at Westchester University and Ursinus. So I was kind of always around the sport, and always kind of seeing what it's like to be on the sports side of the house. And then, like I said, I played college football. My brother's now the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. So I've kind of always been around it. It's something that is near and dear to my heart. But I think it's not just what happens on the sports side. It's also even on the business side. I wake up with a fairly competitive spirit, and I want us to be the best in anything and everything that we do, whether it's on the field or off the field. Like, how can we outbeat the rest of our peer group in the MLS and be better than them, whether it's selling tickets, selling sponsorship, customer experience, the stadium, like whatever we're doing, I want us to be the best at it. And so I think that was brought up in an environment that, my parents kind of preached that sort of mentality. Like, if you're going to do something, you're going to do it to the best of your ability. And you're always going to give 110%, and you're going to outwork anybody and everybody to kind of be at the top. And so that's kind of been my approach to, since I was a little kid in school and through college, and now in sports and working. So, yeah.
I remember when you first got here, right? And you've mentioned how you've been kind of in sports your whole life.
Yep.
Soccer was not one of them,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I remember we had a number of conversations like early on, right? Just in terms of the soccer landscape and stuff like that. What's kind of the big outlier for you, or what's different about MLS and soccer that you haven't seen in your life growing up in kind of the NFL world? Yeah.
Well, I remember talking to Richie Graham at one point in time about the complexity of the soccer ecosystem. Yep. It was like, you need a PhD to kind of understand it. And there's some truth to that. And I think that's, there's some good and there's some bad, right? I think, as we're trying to get more fans, right? And really probably, we have a lot of good hardcore soccer fans, soccer enthusiasts, but that sports fan that might be an Eagles fan or a Phillies fan, Sixers fan, et cetera, like, we want them to come over, right? And so that complexity is probably not a great thing for us. So I think trying to make it a little bit simpler for everybody to kind of understand and not create a barrier that way is important. But the end of the day, this is a global sport, right? And we're conducting trades on a global basis. And for the most part, I don't want to say it doesn't happen in the other leagues, because it does to a certain degree, just not to the extent that it obviously does. I think when you work in soccer, you do start to gain a much better appreciation for this is the world sport, and just the bigness and the magnitude of soccer across the globe that exists is magnificent, right? And so when you're in the NFL or maybe NBA, I don't think you always appreciate just how big soccer is globally.
Yep.
So I think, look, there's a tremendous amount of upside to soccer, and it's part of the reason why 9-10 years ago I thought the ingredients for soccer in the United States were right. And I think it's borne out to be the case. In fact, I'd probably say it's exceeded my expectations from 9 to 10 years ago in terms of the growth trajectory that we've been on, the MLS has been on. What I thought was the ubiquity of the sport, the sophistication of the youth structure, the facilities, fields, the fact that it's on TV in some way, shape, or form, electronic gaming, digital, being able to look up, hey, how do you do a Maradona, all those different things, that was all there. And so that's all true, and those were all key ingredients. What I didn't factor in probably is the power and influence of the ownership groups that have been coming into the MLS over the last 10 years. And that even put it further on rocket fuel. So when you look at kind of where we are today, and then I think where we can be in the future, there's a tremendous amount of upside. We've got to figure out how to knock down some pins to get us there, right? We obviously want to continue to create better awareness, gain more attention. Obviously, everybody's thinking the World Cup's going to be a big piece to that, and I do think is the case. So I think if I was to forecast out, and if you were to think about in stocks, I think I'd be a buyer of the MLS. Like I'm very bullish on where we've been, but also where we're going to go in the next 10 years.
Do you see, because we've had this conversation as well, and I think you and I see it a little bit differently in terms of the biggest rival to MLS. Is it your fellow sports teams here in Philadelphia, or is it your Liverpools, your Chelseas,
Yeah.
your Real Madrids that
Yeah.
are looking for every dollar
Sure.
that they can find here in the United States?
Yeah, and I think we might differ on this one. So, look, there's a little bit of both, right? The truth of the matter is any team competes in their local market, right? And what I mean by that is you compete for share of eyeballs, share of wallet, sponsors, tickets, whatever it may be. Whether in Philadelphia or whether it be in Los Angeles, doesn't matter. Like you're always going to have that. You're somewhat competing for all those share of like I said, eyeballs, money, etc. And so the difference that I sometimes probably have than maybe what you feel is I know a lot of those clubs that are from other parts of the world are trying to come here in some way, shape, or form, right? They play games here every year. They do friendlies here. They have certain offices and have been set up here as not necessarily their headquarters, but they are trying to create beachheads here in the United States. So I think of that as that's a little bit of competition, quite frankly, right? So selfishly, yeah, I want people wearing a Philadelphia Union jersey and watching Philadelphia Union games as much as possible. I know many people, probably including yourself, think, well, I can root for the Union and I can root for fill-in-the-blank team, and that may or may be true. But again, from my lens, I want everybody to be a Union fan, and I want their heart and their soul and their mind and their eyeballs and et cetera going to the Union. So when I see all of these other clubs that are coming here, look, they're coming after our talent. They're coming after, they want eyeballs from America, right? They want a bigger media rights deal, et cetera. So I do think there's competition there. I 100% think there's competition there. And so, I to the extent that, MLS teams are in a Club World Cup or in a CONCACAF, I want us to, do awesome. I want us to kick butt. I want us to beat everybody. Yep. I firmly believe that as a league, we are, ascending in a big way. We are on the heels of a lot of other leagues that I think a lot of people probably don't give us the credit for just yet, of just how good of a league we are. I don't think we're far away. I put us up against the bottom tier of the Premier League. Like you take some of the teams in the MLS and against the bottom tier Premier League teams, I don't know. I think it'd be pretty close, some of those games.
Now, do you mean on the field or also commercially?
I'm talking on the field.
Strictly on the field.
On the field. I think we are much, much better than what we get the credit for, and I have no qualms about saying that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the players that come here, they go, oh my goodness, this is a lot better than what we realized. So I think it's time we start acting that way. I think it's time we start thinking of ourselves that way. I think it's time we put our big boy pants on and say, let's go, let's take them on. Yep. I get fired up because I want to play those teams and I want us to beat those teams, and I want everybody to realize that, the MLS is on the way up, and very soon will be one of the best, if not the best leagues out there in the world.
Yep.
And I want people who come to work here to think that way, to feel that way, and to love that, and to desire to have that and to compete that way.
So you said you want to see fans all over in Philadelphia Union jerseys. Well, right now, there's a lot of eyes on soccer and a lot of eyes on soccer in America. Club World Cup was in Philly. There's games, there's fans. People are coming out to go to these games that might not even be soccer fans, just for the spectacle of it. That'll be the same next year.
Yep.
And there will be fans from all over the world in Philadelphia to watch soccer.
Yep.
What is this moment for the Philadelphia Union? What does it look like, and how massive is it for the club?
I'm going to tell you, I think it's a little bit like we have to ensure that we are proactively in those conversations. And what I mean by that is I think a lot of our players, our coaches are going to be asked to be on the news, on, various media outlets, being a voice of authority. We have to make sure that we are in those conversations as much as possible. I think, hopefully, several of our players or players who've come through the union system are going to be playing for, U.S. men's national team. And so I think that's bodes really well for us as well. And that story needs to be told through over the next year or so, right? So as the Philadelphia Union, as the MLS, we have to make sure that we are integrated into the World Cup. If it's simply the World Cup comes, goes, it was a really cool, special, 30 days, like that's awesome. But we have to take the responsibility to make sure that we're doing more to integrate us. One of the thoughts I've had is if you go back to 1994, there was an increase in youth soccer participation. But a few years later, that youth soccer participation dwindled. The difference between 1994 and today is massive, right? There really wasn't an MLS, and there wasn't the youth structure, there wasn't the sophistication of the youth structure, the fields, the facilities, the coaching, et cetera. We have a great opportunity to take advantage of that in the youth, sector, the youth soccer participation world. So we got to make sure we're doing that. We have to figure out between now and then, like, what does that look like, so that as these kids enter that space, are they wearing a union gear? Are they thinking of us? Are they wanting to watch us on TV? Do they know our players, right? Because what I don't want to have happen is the World Cup comes and it's an awesome opportunity for kids to learn about the sport, see the sport, and all of a sudden they hook on to, go back to what you said, they hook on to another club, right? Whether that be a club from, in Europe or wherever it be. I don't want that to be the case. I want them to say, hey, I'm in Philadelphia. I'm playing soccer. I should be watching the union. I should be turning them on. I should know, the coaches' names, the players' names, coming to the games. Like, that is the way that we're going to grow.
I think that reminds me of something that just happened during the Club World Cup when Flamengo was here in Philadelphia and their fans came and they caused a ruckus. They were putting off flares everywhere.
Yeah.
They were heard. They were seen.
Yep.
And they gained such an incredible following just having a couple of games in the United States that they even put things out on their social media saying, hey, welcome to all of our new fans. We're happy to have you. Here's a little bit about our history. That's what happened with that club, and just a brief moment of them being in the spotlight in Philadelphia. So to your point, that's kind of similar to what it sounds like you're speaking about for the Philadelphia Union in the future.
Yeah. Like, I think anybody who comes to Subaru Park raves about the experience, right? And the experience is a very unusual one, right? A soccer experience is a really unusual one. Whether you're at Subaru Park or and anywhere, really, the chants, the cheers, the tifo, that's the piece of soccer that I say, hey, if you spent time in an NFL environment, or if you're an NFL fan, or if you worked for an NFL team or an NBA team, that environment that we have is so different, and it's so special. And I think the more that we can get people to experience that, like, that will get more fans, right? Like, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say, I went to Subaru Park and I didn't have a great time. It's usually, we've won awards for the greatest, the best live sports experience in Philadelphia amongst all the sports teams. So it's a really, it's a special environment that we have. We just, the hope now is we get more people to experience it. and we grow, right? And that's how eventually we want to get to a point where we have, a waiting list and we can build a bigger stadium and go from there.
So I'm not asking Philadelphia Union Club President Tim. I'm asking sports lover Tim McDermott. What is your favorite part of a Philadelphia Union match day at Subaru Park?
First and foremost, the first thing is I always go to the Sons of Ben, and just, I really truly love when that side, the river end, is full, and the cheers and the tifo and the smoke. That is an amazing part of sport. It's a special part of, I think, what makes football, soccer, so special and so unique. Look, I'll also admit right now, probably like a lot of people, I love seeing when Kevin goes on the field right now. I admit that. I love watching him play and seeing what he can do. I have kids that are kind of in his age, so to watch somebody of his skill set compete on a big level is pretty cool. It's pretty unique to see that. It's very unique to Philadelphia Union, but also unique to pro sports. So look, when we have a win and people go home smiling, that's a really good feeling too. So ultimately, though, the goal is the same goal that everybody wants, is to get to MLS Cup, and so hopefully we'll see if that happens this year.
Mark, what about you? What's your favorite part of a match day at Subaru Park? You've been around for a while.
Yeah, I'd probably say the same as Tim. Honestly, it's the river end, and when that thing's going and loud, and the fact that we have such a strong relationship with them, I think is tremendous. I think the element of where the stadium is truly unique. It could have been built downtown, and there would have been the advantages of downtown years ago, but literally everybody that comes here is like, wow, that view is awesome, right? Of the bridge and the river. And again, when you get that smoke going, if you've got a night game and you get that drone flying and does some overhead shots of when we score and stuff, it's awesome. It's probably the coolest thing that I've seen in MLS. So it's a unique thing for sure.
A sunset behind the Commodore Barry Bridge.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Nothing like
That's
it.
Pretty cool. I agree.
It's really special. And when I think about it, I think of a homegrown making their debut and the fans in the stands already knowing their name and being excited to see an academy product. A lot of them from the area get their pro debut at Subaru Park or hit a milestone, score their first goal, get their first assist, get to celebrate with the people in the stands. I think that's probably one of my favorite moments of being in that environment. It's really, really cool to see. And going off of that, there has been a lot of that in the last couple of years for homegrowns, for new developmental players that came to the Union and then grew exponentially since the day that they signed, since the day they got here to Philadelphia. A lot of that has to do with the system we have in place here in Chester. It's different from anything in MLS. What does that have to say about the growth of that pathway, and how important has that been to the club since you've arrived?
So at the 50,000 foot level, I think a lot of us are big believers that to the extent that Team USA, U.S. men's national team, is a perennial, top five, or can become that, that's going to grow the sport so much. If that was to happen, the media will follow. As that happens, then the social currency increases. Kids want to wear the U.S. men's national team gear. They want to wear, the gear of wherever that player may play with or for. So in our case, because we might be a contributor to their success, that hopefully bodes well for us. So at a big level, high level, I just firmly believe that needs to happen, and to have that happen, every MLS team needs to be making significant investments into their academy. It's hard to do, and I know when I first got here, we spent a lot of time debating it, as a leadership group. It's kind of like I always say, you'd walk outside your house, you look at this little tree, and it's a fruit tree, and hey, there's no fruit in the tree, and what do? Do you keep watering it? Do you keep fertilizing it? Do you keep investing in the tree? You walk out the next day, same thing. You walk out the next day, same thing, and there's no fruit. And so at what point do you go, oh, this isn't working? So it's hard to have the patience in it. I'm very thankful that we did, because now that fruit tree has grown up and it's producing a lot of fruit. And so, but that's not easy for every executive or every owner to say, hey, let me give a 5, 6, 7, 8, 10-year run before I start to get the fruit, the results. And so I think inside the MLS world, some are emphasizing it, some maybe not quite as much. I personally believe, like I said, is we need every MLS team to do it, providing this amazing youth development approach and producing top end talent that then helps our U.S. men's national team produce and have great results. And then I think it's a cycle, because if that happens and they're winning and the media's there and there's just a overall cool factor to it, it's just going to get more fans in general. So yeah, that's been a big piece to what we do. Like I said, that's been debated. We just we debated that for years. Would it be the right thing? Could we produce talent? But we always felt like if you just look at the geographic area that we're in, there's plenty of people in this area, and then the way that the MLS is constructed, our ability to kind of go into these white spaces, and we have residency, as and we have a school, and so putting all that together is a pretty special environment for developing a soccer player. And I think now we've done it really well, and a lot of teams around the MLS and around the globe saying, "Hey, what are they doing? How are they doing it?" And I think it's fair to say, like, we have an entire system from our 9-year-old kids, 12-year-old kids that come all the way through our academy, and everybody's taught the same way, that use the same vernacular, same coaching, the same style, the same system. All that type of stuff goes into it, so that by the time a young man might actually step onto the field, we know that he knows what's expected of him, how to insert himself into our system of play, and we have a pretty good yield with that. And so you think about the other way, which is when you have to go out of your system into the market, there's just always a risk of, will they adapt to what we do, whether it be the style of play, whether it be living in Philadelphia, in America, whatever it may be. So our ability to kind of be with these kids for 6, 8, 10 years, so to speak, and like know what we've got and teach and train them, just produce the success rate is a lot higher. And you've seen that our kids step on the field and they don't miss a beat.
And that, to me, is, again, comes back to the unbelievable uniqueness of what we do here. You would not get that in any of the other pro sports leagues here. And the ability to do that, and we talked to Makanya about it last week, about what was one of the hardest things for him. He came over as a younger player, right, and went into Union 2, and it was harder for him because Philadelphia wasn't home, and he was still playing in the second team, whereas your Frankies, your CJ Olneys, all these guys, like, they just keep going up, and all their friends and family are around. And it's incredibly unique to see all of the Sullivan family that's out at every game to watch Cavan and
Sure.
mostly Quinn and stuff, right? And stuff. It's cool. It's so unique to what we have going here.
I think the recent international window also was a really big testament to the pathway and the fruit that it bears, because not only the U.S. men's national team, the senior team, had quite a few Union Academy products for the Gold Cup. The entire United States youth national team system was flooded with Philadelphia Union players. I was reading some stats, and I believe we had the most representation of all MLS clubs in the United States entire U.S. soccer system this past international window. And then you come back here on the first team level, and then in the last week we had 3 Philadelphia Union Academy products make their debut in MLS, and that happened back to back. So when those types of things happen, is it satisfying to look back at those
Sure.
conversations you had all those years ago and see we made that commitment?
Well, look, and a lot of that, a lot of the success, needs to go to Richie Graham and his belief in it, and the story of him kind of growing up in a ski academy, the Burke Ski Academy, and kind of school and learning how to ski and coaching and all that, and then taking that philosophy and kind of bringing it to what we do here. And he was really the pioneer for us, and had the stick-to-itiveness, I'd say, to say, no, let's keep going, it's going to work. And thankfully, it has, and it did. So look, it creates an environment for us too, where we can have sustained success. We can, if we can keep hitting the repeat button on this and continue to develop kids and around the United States, kids around the United States know, hey, if they want to reach for the stars, if they want to become a pro player, this is a great environment to be in. So now what's happening is kids around the country are, they're making a lot of outreach to us saying, hey, we'd like to be in your system.
That's really incredible.
Yeah.
When those successes happen at all different parts of this organization, it's a really exciting thing. But there also is a lot of challenges. And like you said, as the president, a lot of it comes down to you. That's a high stress situation sometimes. Do you ever speak with your brother, who's also in a high stress role?
Yeah, he's probably a little bit more high stress role than me. But we do. We talk often a lot about leadership. Not so much like X's and O's type stuff. I probably couldn't give him a whole lot of advice that he doesn't already know on that side. But we do talk about culture and leadership, strategy, and kind of bigger picture type things. And so those are always really kind of fun conversations to have with him, to see his own development over the years as a head coach and what that looks like, and just like the understanding, like when do you have to dive into something and when can you delegate, like those are, that's a maturation process that any leader has to go through, understanding the need to hire really good people and people that you can communicate with well, people who understand your style, what you're trying to get across. There's so much that goes into winning and losing, whether it be on the American football side or the American soccer side. Like there's so much that goes into it, and it's not just X's and O's. It's I always say in the NFL world, it's like they have a plethora of scouts, and it's like, does their West Coast scout do a better job than every other team's West Coast scout, right? And it's like little tiny nuances, and managing the salary cap, which we have to do here, or managing, and ours is complicated, right, with DPs and TAM and DTAM and all the different kind of nuances that we have. So there's so much that goes into winning that I think it's not just X's and O's. That is certainly a big piece of it, but there's so much more, I think, that makes a good, strong leader, and I think Sean's done just an incredible job.
I know you don't talk X's and O's with your brother. Have you given him your thoughts on the tush push? That's a hot button topic. That's a hot button topic in Philadelphia.
Yes. So I guess I could have either everybody in Philly like my answer and everybody in Buffalo, hate my answer, or vice versa. Right?
I think we just
be
want
careful.
You to be honest.
We're gonna clip this.
Yes. Yeah. Look, I've spoken to him a little bit about it, and at the end of the day, I think his perspective is, if somebody can get, kind of catastrophically hurt, that's probably not a good thing. It hasn't happened, doesn't mean it won't happen or can't happen, or the degree of which it could happen is higher probability. I think that's kind of where he leans, because at the end of the day, to be on the defensive side in particular, stopping that play puts you in a position where you have to potentially put your head down, your neck down, your head down, and that can cause, obviously a big problem in the sport of football. So I think that's kind of where he's been on it, is just if it's something that is dangerous to the players, he'd say, hey, we should be avoiding that. So I think that's a
really even keel answer.
Yeah.
That was well done.
Very diplomatic.
You played football at Cornell, right?
I did, yes.
You were a punter.
Punter and kicker.
Punter and kicker.
Punter and kicker, yeah.
I saw through a little bit of online research, through our research team here, you had 5 yards rushing on your career. Do you remember
them?
I? Yeah.
Really? Well, it might have been on a fake
punt.
Fake
or
punt?
A fake kick?
No, it could have been.
We're figuring out the answer.
So I was a quarterback in high school, and I also played,
here at North
kicker
Penn.
at North Penn, yeah, kicker, punter, etc. Went on to be a kicker and punter at Cornell. But the cool thing, so back when I played, and I was like, back when my grandfather played,
right? They had leather helmets and all that kind of stuff.
I had my leather helmet, right? So we had freshman football was in the Ivy League was mandated. It didn't matter how good you are, you had to play freshman football.
Oh wow!
So I actually played a little wide receiver my freshman year, and then went on, played kicker and punter, so it was an up and down Cornell career, I'd say. So the good news is, my dad likes to say, is I still have, I don't know if this is still true. At one point I had the second longest field goal in Cornell history.
But not anymore?
I don't. It still might be the second longest. I haven't
check.
researched that.
We will check and see if there's any video
I don't know.
evidence. Some black and white maybe of the kick back in the day.
Some black and white, yes.
Which I also think is a little unfair because obviously we've played staff soccer here a number of times as well, and you claim to be, I don't play soccer. This proves why you've got some soccer skill. You were a kicker. You're a punter.
Like the second longest kick in history. You got to bring that on the field.
And you've tried to hustle me, I feel like, because you keep wanting to do these crossbar challenges.
I could absolutely beat you in the crossbar challenge.
Well, that's never been proven. But now that I know that you were a punter and a kicker, it's like, no wonder he wants to do it. He's confident that he can.
Yes. I could definitely beat you.
Fair enough.
What? Zero doubt.
The beautiful new Wisfis Bank Sportsplex. Beautiful fields.
Yes.
We will get out there sometime this summer.
Absolutely. I think I need to see this happen.
Yeah, I'd say I'd have a field goal kicking contest, but I think my leg would fall off.
I would do that.
My time.
That I would do.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do that anymore.
I think I missed my calling because my high school didn't have football. And I feel like I could have been a kicker. Maybe that's just crazy talk of me, but like when I worked for the Philadelphia Soul, we got to go and play on their field sometimes.
Yeah.
Kicked a 45-yarder one time, and I feel like I could have kicked. So maybe we do a field goal kicking contest.
Yeah, maybe.
No, every time we have someone on this podcast, it feels like they're challenging you to something, Mark. Kevin Casey challenged Mark to who could have the longest Alejandro Bedoya.
Which Tim saw because he watches the pod. So he knew that.
I did miss that one, I guess.
He did a great job.
I'm sure he did.
We got to get him on
Stage one.
Are you back up in case Kevin's
I think there's 106 people ahead of me, but I'm willingly 107.
107th.
Yes.
Okay. That's good. Good to know that we got that covered.
Team player, whatever you need me for.
Yes.
You did good on that contest, but I don't know about the field goals, Mark.
Well, we'll see, won't we?
I need to see it. But enough with the American football. Our football, the beautiful game.
Yes.
It's going to be in the spotlight in Philadelphia, like we mentioned before, next summer. What are you looking forward to most?
I'm looking forward to, Team USA, U.S. men's national team, really having a lot of success. Like I think there's a lot of people have high expectations, high hopes. And I think it's about time that we start to break through.
I like that.
Yeah.
Now, Mark, you are newly American almost?
Almost.
Does this upcoming World Cup feel a little different for you?
Nope. Not at all.
Really?
Nope. Still, I think I'll still be rooting for England. I haven't taken my oath yet, so I think I'm still allowed to say that, but maybe we can cut that part, Mike.
I mean, I would have thought by the red, white, and blue streamers hanging up in your office and the balloons and the stars and stripes, and you were walking around with a big hat and the feathers, I would think that you would take some ownership in the U.S. men's national team.
I will. I mean, since it's happened, they're 2-0, so I don't want to take full credit. I'll leave that to the boys on the field, but 2-0 since it happened last week.
Since you took your citizenship test?
That's correct.
Wow.
I think it's a sign.
Could
be a good thing.
What do you think about that, Tim?
I think it's time for you to root for the USA. I think it's.
It's not like I root against
I will
the
say
US.
this. I think it's. I appreciate the fact that if you were born there, so
right.
that's your home, and I get that, and I respect that. I think it's, that's cool.
I appreciate that.
I like that.
Good.
It's not a problem until
No,
we go head to head.
I think it's always important that you celebrate your roots.
Right.
I think it's good.
Right. Thank you.
At Glansman Subaru, we have a lot in common with the roster of the Philadelphia Union. There's no I in team. There's no I in Subaru either. Leave it all on the pitch, leave your keys with us, and go enjoy our comfortable service waiting area. Subaru and local Subaru retailers, like Glansman Subaru, are proud to support the Philadelphia Union. This means we're supporting Union players on the pitch and Union fans on the road with regular maintenance, test drives, and finding that perfect vehicle. Visit Glansman Subaru today. Learn more at glansman.com.
Subaru has teamed up with the Philadelphia Union and Greater Philadelphia area Subaru retailers to make a difference in our community and at Subaru Park. Together, we've helped hundreds of pets get adopted at the stadium. At Subaru Park, we've grown and donated thousands of servings of fresh organic produce to area food banks and helped give kids in our community access to the game they love. Together, Subaru and the Philadelphia Union are making a difference. Subaru, more than a car company.
Coming up in a couple of weeks, the Wisfis Bank Sportsplex official grand opening. Huge for this club.
Yes.
It has been something that our organization as a whole has put a lot of work into. A lot of different sectors of the club have put their time, energy, a lot into making this come to be.
Yeah.
It's something that we've thought about for a really long time. How does it feel to have it so close?
Yeah, so close. I walked over, every day I'm over there, and it's amazing how much we have to do in 2 weeks. But it's exciting. Like, this is something back in 2019, we put together a master plan with the city of Chester and some folks from Delaware County. And in that plan, it was, it was like this kind of 30-year plan of like, how do we really help revitalize Chester? What could it look like? And in that plan was this concept of a sportsplex. And so even if I rewound, so when I first got here in 2016, very, very early, like the first week, I felt like I had people coming up to me and saying, hey, when are you going to help build all of these different, things around, the stadium, and, whether it be office space, whether it be retail, whatever, when are you going to do more of it? And at the time, I kind of was like, well, I'm not so sure, like, is that really, the union's role to do that? And are we more like the Nordstroms in the mall, but we're not necessarily the mall developer? And as I, fast forward from that point, and I, a few years in, I realized, no, we probably are going to have to be the mall developer, so to speak, and the Nordstroms at the same time. And so we did this master plan, and it did have a sportsplex concept in it. And at the end of that, it was a little bit of like, okay, so what do we do first, right? We have this really neat plan, and it's got, office space and mixed use and all this different stuff. But like, what do you really do first? And I have a now 17-year-old and 15-year-old, and so for the last 10 years of my life, I've been at sportsplexes across the east, up and down the East Coast, you name it, from Massachusetts down to Florida. And the power of youth sports in today's society is amazing. If the team is practicing or playing in a tournament at such and such place, as a parent, you're there. There's so much investment that parents are making into their children, into the betterment of their children, developing their children, trying to have aspirations of having them play at the highest level. And I could talk for hours about youth sports, the good and the bad. But the truth of the matter is there's just a ton of energy into that space, into that sector. And I thought that's what we could do. That's what we could do in Chester first. And if we could do that, we could bring down a lot more people to the area who wouldn't naturally be here. Maybe they're not soccer fans, but they're here at a sportsplex because their son or daughter's playing, whatever it be, basketball or volleyball or field hockey, lacrosse, whatever it may be. And so that was the idea, is like that could be the first thing that we do. So we're about 2 weeks away from the ceremony, and it's 170,000 square feet, indoor space, 33 acres of land. It'll be around a $90 million sportsplex, and first of its kind, first class, I'd say. And when I say first of its kind, what I really mean by that is it's a unique mix of serving our academy and Union 2, right? So professional with community, doing a lot of stuff for the Chester community. We're going to be having Chester Biddy League, which is the Chester youth basketball league. It's been in existence for like 60 years here. They're going to be playing there. The Chester High School football team's already been using it. So it's a unique mix of professional with community, and then what I'll call other third-party sports. So like I said earlier, field hockey or lacrosse or flag football. So a unique mix. I've seen this one other time in my career where I was at the Washington Capitals, and they built a training center there for the Washington Capitals, the staff, the players, etc. But it was also open to the public, and so they would have high school games or club hockey games. And so it'd be so cool. You'd see Alex Ovechkin skating, and as a fan, you could just come in and watch him practice, which is so amazing. So this is along those same lines. So it's going to have 7 outdoor fields, 1 indoor field that'll be full size, heated, cooled, 2-story weightlifting center, 2 basketball courts, multi-sport courts, bunch of flex space for events. We're creating what I think is probably one of its first of its kind, is a striker lab, where much like Wake Forest did with the pitching lab, if you're familiar with what they did there, this is going to be all for soccer players to understand how do you strike a ball, to bend it, curve it, whatever it may be, and using a lot of the computer technology to kind of help a young player identify, their weight distribution, all that different stuff that goes into the physics of it. So to have 6 locker rooms, offices, so it's going to be just amazing, state of the art, and it really kind of goes back to now with, while I said that we had this master plan and hey, the sportsplex would be the first thing, it was also just kind of a natural piece to say, okay, our academy was up in Wayne, Pennsylvania. We bring them down here. We put the school here. So now we have a campus that the kids are all on. And from a development standpoint, if you're a 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 16-year-old, you're looking up and you're seeing, oh, there's the Union 2, oh, there's the Union players. And that feeling is pretty unique. And then to kind of get the players or the coaches, to all be on one campus so that they're getting to know each other better. They're using the same terminology. The ability to kind of interchangeable parts between the coaches and the athletic trainers and all that piece weaves together, pretty magical.
So you're speaking about the academy and these young players, and then youth soccer, youth sports, and the young players coming up through their respective sports. Do you think being a dad gives you a little bit extra perspective when it comes to these things?
100%. No doubt about it. Like I said, I have every one of these sportsplexes that I've been to, I've taken so many notes, so many photos of like, they do this well, they don't do this well, whether it be little things like bathrooms or parking or food, or, I now know more about the infill of turf fields than I thought I'd ever know. I probably went to 50 different fields and felt the rubber or the synthetic. We use a cork here in our fields. So I have learned so much about, running a sports facility. And like you said, like having the perspective of having kids, and honestly, the pressures I think a lot of kids are under these days of performing at a high level. I think particularly in the United States, like we have really professionalized youth sports, and there's a lot of awesome with that, a lot of cool, but it also comes with a lot of probably side effects. Like I said, the pressures that go along with it, the expectations that kids have. I remember, I grew up wrestling, and my son also was a wrestler, and he knew moves and was exposed to moves that I didn't know till probably high school, and he was in probably 7 years old learning these things. And so we've really put, I think, youth sports in this like accelerated professionalism. And there's a lot of amazing pieces that go with that, but it's sometimes hard, I think, to be a young kid in youth sports and kind of all the expectations that go along with it.
Before you asked him, I'll do the field goal kicking contest. I'm not wrestling you. I'm not. We're not like moving this table out of here, and I'm not going to do that. Just for the record.
That's been a long time ago for me, pal.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. My brother might be a different story,
Yeah.
But, he was the very, very good wrestler. Yes.
Would he throw down with some of his players at the Bills, like get into?
I don't know if he necessarily do that, but he was a 2-time national prep champion.
Get out.
Yeah, he wrestled. You ever saw the movie Foxcatcher?
Yeah.
So he wrestled a Foxcatcher.
Wow.
So a lot of my family was very much into that. My brother-in-law was a big wrestler. He wrestled at Penn State. So the wrestling piece has kind of been in our blood, and that's a whole different story.
Is that like holidays? Like you guys clear out the dinner table after?
What I would say is like if you're not familiar with the sport of wrestling, when I say wrestling, I don't mean WWE. I mean like real wrestling. It is one of the most incredible sports there is out there. Like in terms of physicality, mental toughness, what it helps you with other sports. I'll hire wrestlers, any day of the week, because I know that they know how to compete. They know how to, if their back's against the wall, to fight. The determination, their grit. If you've ever gone like to some of the wrestling, I could take you to some of the elite wrestling, programs around here, and if you watch their training and just the intensity of it, like I will put a wrestler up against any sport out there. These kids know how to work their tail off.
Yeah.
I'm talking about some of you'll come in. My son used to go to, he still does, I guess, but go to one of the wrestling programs, the Malvern Wrestling Club, does a lot of youth stuff now. And it's a lot tamer, I feel like now, but man, I'll tell you at a point in time, there would be, to say there's blood, sweat, and tears in that practice room, I am not like exaggerating. There's literally blood, sweat, and tears. Kids are, blood coming down them, and these are 10-year-old, 12-year-old kids, and it was, it's hardcore. And when you kind of go through those and you watch these kids who know how to battle like that and know how to compete and are tested like that, and they just keep going, they grind, it's pretty amazing to watch. That's cool. Wrestler. Yeah,
that's cool.
Do you think you still have that wrestler in you?
Definitely not in me.
But in your, in your mind.
I think I think that's one of the beauties of like going through it, of like, when you have to go onto a wrestling mat and compete against somebody, just you and them, whether you win or whether you lose, like just having the courage to get into the arena. One of my favorite, speeches of Teddy Roosevelt, just, kind of the, about getting into the arena and having the willingness and the desire to compete, whether you win or lose, I think is, a big piece of athletics. And I think in wrestling, that's a big piece of it. Like just, it's not easy to get onto a wrestling mat, and you've got all these people around you, and they're yelling and screaming and everything else that goes into it. And at the end of the day, nobody can help you. There's no teammate. There's nothing. So, I've got a lot of, just I think a special place in my heart for the sport. But at the same time, or equally so, I know people who've gone through that sport and just what it means and how tough they are.
And then that toughness, bringing it to this role. And since you've come into this role, a lot of incredible things have happened for the club. And right now we're at a moment, we've talked about all of the different things that are kind of coming together all at once. The Sportsplex, the success of the first team on the field, and then all the international eyes on American soccer. As we close out the podcast here, do you have a message for fans who might be hearing the Philadelphia Union for the first time, seeing our ads, seeing our players have so much success? Do you have a message for them and why they should become part of the family?
Yeah. So listen, it's probably one of the more thrilling sports experiences I think that you can really experience. If you've not been to a match before, it's faster than you realize than if you just maybe watch it on TV. It's a lot faster. I equate it like hockey is a little bit that way. If you've ever watched hockey on TV versus in person, a lot faster, a lot tougher, a lot more physical than I think a lot of people realize. I think sometimes the sport gets a little bit of a bad rep for maybe guys, with the falling down or floundering a little bit and, faking some stuff. Like, I don't love that, I'll be honest. Like, that drives me nuts, to be honest with you. And if I was in a position I could clean that up, I'd clean that up tomorrow. I can't stand that. But going back to my wrestling, like, you would never see a wrestler do that type of stuff, right? So I don't like that at all. Look, it's a fast-paced environment, and it is a lot more physical. The skill that these guys have, their instantaneous decision-making, their ability to kind of see like a chess match, 2-3 moves ahead is really fascinating. The environment as a fan that you're in, when you've got the smoke and the cheers and the screaming and the tifo and all that goes with it, so unique. So I'm I think most people that come to our stadium also love the Subaru Park experience, along the water and the views, and so it's pretty special. I think, as I said earlier, I think the trajectory for us is a really good one.
And there will be a lot of opportunities for fans to come to Subaru Park this summer. So please check out our schedule, because we're only just over halfway through the season. So there's plenty of games at Subaru Park, plenty of Subaru Park sunsets coming up real soon. Mark?
I got to be honest, Sage. I thought, and I was kind of hoping, that you would ask me what my favorite memory of working these 10 years with Tim has been. Can you ask me?
Mark, I have a quick question before we close out here. Do you have a favorite memory working with Tim in the last 10 years?
I do. I don't know if Tim's going to remember this, but we're talking early 2020.
COVID, okay.
COVID has hit. We're all sent home. We're working from home.
Yeah.
We start scheduling Friday phone calls, right? And I don't remember how it came up, but nobody has any idea what's going on with COVID. It's like, gee, what are we doing here? We could be back next week. We might not be back for 3 months. I vividly remember you telling us a story one time that you ordered a pizza. Because of the germ stuff, you then took the pizza and then recooked it in your oven when it got home.
Did I?
You don't remember that?
I don't.
I thought it was the greatest story ever. But again, we had no idea what was going on. But now you look back and you're like, Tim, you realize you just double cooked a pizza.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Tim, I'm not going to lie. I got here in 2023 and I've heard that story before.
Really?
It was a great one.
Wow.
It was a great one.
Hey, I mean, I guess at the time, early on in COVID,
people were doing crazy things.
You knew what to doing, right? You're wiping
But
down
double
your
cooking
groceries.
a pizza. Yeah, well, correct.
Right?
A lot of people did that, like wiping down grocery bags and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, unless you're in the wrestling world, and they didn't stop.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
All right, Union fans, on that note, that's all we have for you today. Tim, thank you so much for joining us.
You got it.
Excited about the rest of the season and what's to come. Mark, as always.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Thanks for being you.
Of course. Just trying.
We'll see you next time.